I believe communication is not just about, say, a social media post or sending out a newsletter. We often think communication is something which is like a piece of content, but I think communication is also about experience that one can provide, and that communicates in a big way.
Welcome to Shaping Cities. In this podcast brought to you by City Collab, we spotlight the practice of communication in city planning and development and its vital role in bridging ideas with action. In today's episode, we explore how experiential communication combined with clear, relatable messaging can drive real change in improving our streets, public transport, and our cities. I'm your host Vani, and our guest today is Shreya Gadepalli. Shreya is an urban mobility practitioner and one of India's foremost experts in the field of urban mobility. She leads UrbanWorks, a non-profit organization that collaborates with governments and non-government partners to make cities work for everyone through research, compelling communication, and effective training. Over 25 years, her work has spanned everything from designing cycle rickshaws and launching India's first BRT system to leading transformative national programs like Cycles for Change and Transport for All. Shreya herself is an avid cyclist and frequent bus user. Shreya was also my first mentor when I returned to India in 2010 after working as an urban designer and planner in the United States. I joined ITDP where she was leading the India program. I still remember one of my earliest assignments, crafting a concise presentation on how transit oriented development could transform Indian cities. This was aimed at senior national decision makers. I learned so much from that first experience, and it was probably pivotal in showing me just how crucial communication is to urban development. So, welcome Shreya to this podcast. Shreya, my first question: what do we understand by, let's say, experiential communication, and how do immersive experience can be so effective in building support from decision makers as well as larger public?
Great, I think that's a fantastic question. I believe communication is not just about, say, a social media post or sending out a newsletter. We often think communication is something which is like a piece of content, but I think communication is also about experience that one can provide, and that communicates in a big way. Uh, there are a couple of examples that I can give through my life, starting very early on, even with the cycle rickshaw program. The cycle rickshaw program was essentially about redesigning the humble cycle rickshaw into a 21st century vehicle, if you will, because cycle rickshaws, they had been there for about 60, 70 years at that point in time. But there was no innovation in it, and cycle rickshaws were seen as being antiquated. They were seen as being inhuman. They were seen as being uncomfortable. So every wrong word that you could associate with was associated with the cycle rickshaw. And the goal was, can it be made modern? Can it be made comfortable? That can it be made uh, dignified, if you will, uh, as a mode of transportation? And that's exactly what we did with not only the design, but also we got one excellent example is that of how we collaborated with Mughal Sheraton, the hotel. The whole project was based in Agra. The intent was saving the Taj by removing polluting vehicles around the Taj in a 5 kilometer radius. And what better way than a cycle rickshaw, which has absolutely no pollution? It's a zero pollution vehicle, right? Not even an electric vehicle can make that claim. Uh, but we needed to position it as something that's not for the poor, but something that's desirable by even the rich. So we went to the fanciest hotel in town, Mughal Sheraton. That's what it was called back then. I don't know what it's called now. And we suggested to them that we could have at all times two rickshaws, modern rickshaws that we had designed, which were extremely comfortable, very fancy looking, to be positioned in their portico for any of their patrons to try, like, to go to the Taj. And this worked brilliantly because now you saw all these high-end customers, many of them who were foreigners, who were using this cycle rickshaw to go to the Taj. So it had excellent media presence. Everybody knew that such a cycle rickshaw existed, and everybody wanted to know what the cycle rickshaw is. And then when we got local manufacturers to manufacture these and put them out in larger numbers, it turned out that these cycle rickshaws were actually cheaper than the older cycle rickshaws. So, what better product can you have, and it's cheaper and it's better for both the cycle rickshaw driver as well as the passenger, and looks attractive. So I would call this experiential communication because we got people excited about it. So I think getting people excited about something new, something that you want to see, is the method. And this is a standard tool that every marketing person knows, every
Mm.
advertising agency knows. But we were
Correct.
using that for sustainable mobility, or what we now should be calling green mobility for everyone, right? Another similar, experiential example that I can give is when training municipal engineers on how streets should be designed. Typical design trainings are in a classroom setting where you do it for half a day or one day with a lunch in between in a fancy hotel. Instead, our workshops were there out on the ground, and
Mm.
two examples of experiential communication. One, we got every engineer to go 100 meters on a wheelchair on a main arterial of their own city. And this blew their minds, and they were scared to death by
Mm.
having to use a wheelchair. And they were like, no, we can't have our city be like this. We want our city to work for everyone, right? So they started redesigning the city. Another simple tool, like, which some people might call it tactical urbanism, but I call it instant tactical urbanism, which is go on the street and first do a quick count for 10 minutes of how many vehicles are passing through on a section of road, and then put up cones to put the road on diet, right? Reduce the width of the street by about 1.5 meters using cones. And again, do a 10-minute count of vehicles. And many of them found that by streamlining the carriageway, even reducing the width was actually increasing the number of vehicles which were passing through.
Mm.
And they did it on their own. That's the experiential part of it. Like, you could have
Right.
put this data in a video and shown it in a classroom, they wouldn't have believed it. But them being on the ground and putting the cones on their own and doing the count on their own and then looking at the numbers in disbelief is what changes minds. So, I think that's the brilliance of experiential communication.
Shreya, one thing I want to speak to you about when one of the success stories in India in the bus rapid transit domain is the Ahmedabad BRT. I think it's been active for over I think close to 2 decades now. Shreya, probably. Um,
Not quite 2 decades, but yeah, it started in 2009. But like the trials
2009.
started in 2008. So yeah, 16, 17 years. Yeah.
17, 18 years. And we do see that a lot of other Indian cities are facing criticism, for BRTs. There is little public support. I think many cities have had to dismantle, these very important, transport systems. In Ahmedabad, though there are issues and the system is facing challenges, I think we still see quite a widespread support for BRT. You will see a media article, let's say, coming out if there is some decision about, it's not working, and there'll be people, citizens groups who will come together to voice, their opinions. And I do think, and I've spoken to you about it when we were working together, a big part of why this has been so successful is that there was a very strong communication strategy that was put in place, I think, when it was thought about, coupled with definitely the technical experiences of making it a high quality BRT, making sure everything is designed well. Absolutely, that was the foundation of that, it being a good design. But also, I think there was a very strong engagement and communication initiative that ran probably parallelly to this, and which has resulted in this strong support. If you can take us back to those days, I think, like you said, it's 2009, 10. What was it, in terms of communication that you did, that your team did, and what are some of the lessons that we can draw, from on current projects, that we can couple a strong communication strategy along with public projects?
Ahmedabad BRT went live in late 2009, right, as in into full commercial operations. But the communication started in 2007, right, a good 2 years before the system went live. And what was it? As in, we managed to get the municipal commissioner appreciate the need for communication, and he held weekly, sometimes fortnightly, but typically weekly press meets to give proactively information about what is it that was being done. Like, why bus rapid transit? Where is it going to be? Who is it going to benefit? How is the design being made? Sometimes it might be a very minute detail, but it still keeps interest on. So, two things here: proactively giving information about it, showing how it benefits public at large with the media, then make sure that the public opinion which is being formed about this is positive, right? I'm not talking about manipulation here, and sometimes it might sound like manipulation, but this is not manipulation because you're giving real facts, right? You're giving real information, but you're being proactive about it. That's point number one. Two, the minute the system, like certain physical elements of the system started being made on the ground, and we started creating like experiences with various influential partners in the city. We said, this is how the bus stop is going to be, right? Do you
Hmm.
have any feedback to give? Like, do you think something can be improved about it? Right? So two things that is being done. One, when you ask for feedback, there's immediately a sense of ownership because you're giving people a voice in how to shape what is going to be done, right, in the future. uh, Two, it's actually useful feedback. Sometimes there might be certain things that you've overlooked, and you get valid feedback that you can use in further improving the design of whatever you're trying to do or the plan that you're trying to create. Uh, and we got both, and both of them were incorporated into the final design as the BRT stations were created all along the city. And the minute slightly larger number of fleets started coming into this in and the system hadn't gone live yet, we got various influential groups in the city. Like, one example is having some top people from the Swaminarayan sect who have a strong voice in the city, right? This might sound unusual, but I think it's extremely important that you get the right kind of people. Uh,
Right.
to come experience the system. So,
Hmm.
how do you get into the bus station? How do you get into the bus so conveniently without having to have any steps, navigating any steps, as if it's like a metro, right? How smooth the bus is when it's cutting through traffic and zooming past traffic jams and reaching wherever you want to reach. Just that experience changes the imagination of a large set of influential people in the city. Sometimes it's the judiciary, right? I think it's extremely important that we also bring the judiciary to experience what is being done in the city because they have an important role to play in the city,
Right.
as well as other groups like corporate leaders, etc. All of them had this experiential communication, if you will, and this created a positive momentum in the city for bus rapid transit. The last but not the least, our present honorable prime minister, back then when he was the chief minister of Gujarat, made sure that he actually stopped his car about half a kilometer away from the BRT station, walked on the footpath, crossed the street, and then entered the BRT as if a commoner would do it.
Yeah.
Uh, and this dramatically changes the impression of what this BRT is. There was a certain sanctity that was created for the dedicated lanes for bus. Even like the message that was sent was that even the chief minister's car would not get into the bus lane, right?
That is, yeah. And that is
And
so
that's
powerful.
brilliant communication, right?
Yes.
Brilliant communication in terms telling people saying that, listen, I might be the chief minister, but the sanctity of the bus lane needs to be maintained.
Yes. I
So
think
I
that
think
is
these
very.
are all excellent examples of communication making BRT win in Ahmedabad compared to many other cities in India.
Thank you, Shreya. I think that is so amazingly powerful, symbolic also, right? And I think as people who are behind, these public improvement projects, as technical experts, it's so important for us to realize this, that you have to build that larger political public support. You have to, engage influential voices. I think one bit, if you can also elaborate on, Shreya, I think there was also a whole media education exercise that went together with this. What is it about? Why? What do we mean when we say that we have to also engage with media and bring them in on what is green mobility? What does it mean when everyone can have this, the same right to the street or the bus? So how would you, yeah, if you can speak a little bit about engaging with the media.
Sure. Uh, so I think there are two facets of media. Like the common perception is that media is the voice of people, which is right, right? But media also shapes the voice of people to a large degree. And I think this is second side is often overlooked, if you will. And it's important that media, because it has the power to shape public opinion, be brought on board with the 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 actual facts about what a certain initiative is, like whatever it might be. Something as simple as like there was a tactical urbanism exercise that I had done recently in Guwahati as well as in Ooty. But before it was done, we got to the key media houses in the city and told them proactively. And this was not, as in when I say we, it was actually the collector of the city whom I had supported in this, who proactively gave information about what is being done in the city and why it's being done and what kind of feedback that she seeks from the media. Right? Imagine if this was just done without any media engagement and something was done overnight and everybody wakes up to something which is there on the ground, but they don't quite know what has been done. There would be a lot of negative reaction. They would say, oh, why was this done? Instead, the question that was asked of the media was, we are trying to do this. Can you tell us what works and what doesn't work and what should be done about it? And so the entire conversation changed from, should we be reclaiming space for people to walk in the heart of the city, to where all in the city can space be reclaimed, right? That's a brilliant change in
Right.
perception in the media, right? So the questions that were being asked the next day when the actual tactical urbanism was done was, why can't we do this also near the railway station and the bus station and certain other parts of the city? Why aren't we making the city more walkable, right? It and media tends to have a certain critical angle, but the critical angle here was, why is more of this not being done, right? Rather than saying, why is this being done?
Correct. Yes, absolutely. And I think you're so right that, in saying that media can also shape, while it reflects the voice of people. I think it's also an avenue and a aspect, a vehicle to shape public opinion. And like you said earlier, it's about presenting the facts, but framing them in a way, right? So it's not, it's because if you bombard like 100 different figures, or this is happening technical data, but I think it's equally important to position and frame those facts, in a way that they can take it and take that story up. I think that is also extremely useful. So Shreya, I think
And if I can
absolutely.
add actually one more point here, Vani,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
also that communication needs to be targeted, as in you need to know the audience that you're speaking with and ensure
Right.
that the message speaks to that particular audience. Like we had the same, like, while we had an engagement with media, in Ooty, we also had an engagement with the police department. So we had a small little workshop on the day before this was the tactical urbanism, 2 days before the tactical urbanism was done, uh, where all the departments, but especially the police department, which was a key stakeholder, was present. And we did a workshop with them, which was again experiential in nature. Uh, and so they were all brought on board. Similarly, we had a workshop which was done with all the main shopkeepers
Hmm.
of the main road also, and shown some before after impressions of what the street could become like, right? And the question that was asked of the shopkeepers was, wouldn't you want to have more footfalls and more business? The question was not, do you want to have more space reclaimed for people and reduce cars? Because that would completely misfire when it comes to shopkeepers. The question for shopkeepers is, I want to have more business. right?
Yeah,
So
and
the messaging for each of these workshops was targeted for that particular stakeholder.
absolutely. And again, that point is also about framing, right? I mean, if you frame it like, would you not want more footfall and more people? And I think you have to. It's basic human psychology, how we tend to react and make decisions. So I think we need to understand that. And
Exactly.
every survey, and we were discussing this show. Every survey, every tool is an opportunity for us to make it into something which is meaningful.
Do not be afraid of testing and learning from it. One of the mantras that I've given is test, learn, and then scale. So try as much as possible to get to the minimum possible. It's like the idea of the minimum viable product, if you will, in the technology space. What is the minimum viable product that you have here? As in, it needs to be a viable product. It cannot be a minimum product. So that's why it's extremely important to combine the two ideas. It's minimum, but it's viable, and think of it as a product, right? Whatever it is that you're trying to create, test it out, figure out what's working, what's not working, iterate quickly, and then scale the idea. And this was really behind the two big recent campaigns that I had led, or three big recent campaigns that I had led, which were Cycles for Change, India Cycles for Change, Streets for People, and Transport for All. Right. The goal was to encourage cities to test, learn from those tests, and then scale those ideas eventually once you've learned from those ideas, and help them in that process of what is the minimum thing that you can test to learn from it. How have you learned, what have you learned from it, and how do you scale this? Right. Recently, a small group, advocacy group in a mid-sized city in India, wanted some advice from me about how to pursue, and they had gotten a grant, and they want. And I told them, listen, the very first thing that you should do is to start building uh, political support for whatever your agenda is. Go to the local councillors, go to the local MP, MLA, show what's possible, and try it out in their jurisdictions. And this might not be your final uh, goal, but you need to come with something that's small enough to first build political support for the idea, and then get them to become champions for it to be scalable,
Amazing.
right? Uh, so your goal might be about building better buses, but sometimes the first thing that you should probably think of is doing tactical urbanism in an area of a counselor who is somewhat supportive, to build their support, get then this counselor to get her friends, or his friends, to do this in other places, such that there's a whole audience that is created which is supportive of the idea, and then say, good streets are not enough, we need to also have great buses,
Something, yeah. Amazing.
right?
Great. Thank you so much, Shreya. I think test, learn, and scale. I think that's a fantastic summary of everything that we have spoken about, right? Like the entire aspect of experiential communication is test, learn, and scale. And I think if you zoom it out to if you want to pursue advocacy, I think what you need to do is test, learn, and scale. And I think that's a fantastic end to this. I've really enjoyed this conversation, Shreya. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. Shaping Cities by City Collab. See you next time.